Westerville Board of Education to order. I thank you for being here this evening. It's great to see such a full house tonight, and I would like us to begin by having the treasurer call the roll.
Mrs. Crow, Mrs. Davidson.
Here.
Dr. French.
Here.
Mr. Villardo.
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Here. Thank you. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As you can see, the agenda is displayed on the screen for you. We are on item 3 on the agenda now, and that is discussion and approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on March the 10th of this year. We're not doing motions and seconds on minutes. We are doing this by consensus approval. Are there any changes that anyone would like to suggest at this point to the minutes? I hear none, Bart. So we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, and that's district highlights and recognitions, which I know that's what most of you are here for. I'm not deluding myself into thinking that you're all here to stay for this grand and glorious meeting. So we will move. I know, it's sad. We could shut the door and tell them there's more. We should move the recognitions to the end of the agenda. And no, we're not going to do that to you. So district highlights and recognitions, I'm going to turn this over to the Vice President of the Board, Tracy Davidson, who is our liaison for community engagement. Let's join Tracy out front.
Probably for the recording, you probably need to use that.
You got it. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Good evening. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the evening, where we have the opportunity to recognize our students, our staff, and our schools. Our first 2 recognitions are the American Legion Americanism and Government Test, as well as the American Legion Buckeye Boys and Girls State Delegates. To help us recognize these students, I would like to invite Bev Etling from the American Legion Young Bud Post 171 to the podium.
Thank you. I want to thank you for allowing us again to be here to present these wonderful students. And as always, I want to thank Westerville Schools for the liaison, the camaraderie that we have with the school district, and for allowing us to be in the schools. One of the main tenets of the American Legion is to educate our youth, and that's what these 2 programs are about. So I would also like to thank the 3 principals of the 3 high schools, Mr. Skinner, Mr. Yancey, and Mr. Anderson, and the advisors, because if we didn't have those advisors working in the schools, we wouldn't have these programs going, and that would be Don Ogle and Katie Mahoney at Westerville Central, Tim Smith and Jim Brady at Westerville North, and Todd McDavid at Westerville South. So they keep both the programs going. Without much more ado, I'd first like to explain about the Americanism and Government Test, especially for the people in the audience. It is a test of 50 questions. It's given every fall, and the questions have to do with government, citizenship, flag etiquette, and that kind of thing. There are 50 questions plus an essay. And Legion District 12, which is where we are, is Franklin County. And this year we had 2 district winners from Westerville. So right now I would like to introduce Jeremy Paul and Allison Ewbrey. Jeremy and Allison, for the first time, tied at our post level. So they both received $50 from our post. And Allison went on to win a district award for having the highest score as a junior girl in Franklin County. So I think that deserves an award. And Ted Lee is from Westerville North. He was a sophomore. Usually it's juniors and seniors who take the test. He couldn't be here, but he also had the highest score of all the sophomore boys in Franklin County. So he will get his certificate tomorrow. He was sorry he couldn't be here. So I'll present those two to you now, Allison and Jeremy. Would you like to step forward? Next, I'd like to speak just a little bit about Buckeye Boys State and Girls State for those, especially those here who may not be familiar with that program. It is a program sponsored by, two programs sponsored by the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary, and it is a week of hands-on experience in government. Students from all over the state of Ohio attend this, and I have to give kudos, big kudos to the Westerville schools and those 5 advisors I work with, because they pre-screen the students who come to our interview process. We had 42 students participate in our process, and we choose 21 of those to attend Boys State and Girls State. And we actually had another post, Sunbury's post, contacted us, and they're going to send our first alternate as a delegate, and he's here tonight too. So that speaks very highly for the school district and that program and the quality of these students. So I will move on. First, I'd like to introduce, call the boys. Boys, would you like to stand up? And I'm going to call their names alphabetically to receive their certificates. First, we have Jonathan Brooks. Okay. You might want to hold your applause till the end here. And next, Grant Shuddick could not be here tonight, so he's not here. Next is Jeremy Coulter. Did I say that wrong? Jared Coulter, I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong. And Donald Farrow would be next. Grant Hageland. Seamus Hilt, who could not be here tonight. Adonis Johnson. Leland Klein, who could not be here tonight. Jordan Messmer. And Jacob Waldroff. And for the girls, we have Anna Borish, who could not be here tonight. Mackenzie Crenshaw. Why don't we have all the girls stand up and come? Okay. Mackenzie Crenshaw. Ashanti Harper. Tricia Hogue. Hartley Johnston, excuse me. Emily McAllister. Well done. Patricia Roderer. Carmen Stone. Katie Trimmer, who could not be here tonight. Oh, you are here. She wasn't going to be here. Mai Trin. Allison Ewbrey. And Rachel Wozniak. And those are our 21 Buckeye Boys State and Girls State students. Thank you.
Can I ask the students to stand again and their families so we can recognize them one more time for this wonderful achievement? Now it's my pleasure to welcome Lisa Wood and Kristen Buckley, co-chairs for Reflections, an annual cultural arts program, to the podium.
Thank you. President Dr. Nestor Baker, members of the Westerville Board of Education, Dr. Kellogg, Mr. Griffin, executive staff, and distinguished guests, good evening. My name is Lisa Wood, and I had the pleasure of co-chairing the 2013-2014 National Reflections Program along with Kristen Buckley. Westerville Parent Council extends their thanks to you for taking the time to recognize these 11 artists tonight. This year, 100 students participated at the district level from 3 middle schools and 9 elementary schools, emphasizing that the arts are an integral part of our children's development. The recognition you are giving tonight demonstrates your continued support, so again, thank you. The PTA Reflections Program began back in 1969 in the state of Colorado. In more than its 40 years, the National Reflections Program has encouraged millions of students across the country to create works of art based on a chosen theme. This annual program encourages students in preschool through grade 12 attending a school with a PTA or PTSA to participate by submitting works of art in 6 different art categories. Within each category, submissions are judged in 4 different grade divisions. They are primary, preschool through 2nd grade, intermediate, grades 3 through 5, middle encompasses 6 through 8, and high school 9 through 12. Reflections also added this year a new division for special artists. The 6 categories are dance choreography, film production, literature, music composition, photography, and visual arts. Some past themes have been Beauty Is and the Magic of the Moment. This year's theme was Believe, Dream, and Inspire. Next year's theme will be The World Will Be a Better Place If. Well, how did we get here tonight? Winning entries from each of our Westerville elementary and middle schools advanced to the district judging. Districts were permitted to send 53 of our winners to state judging, and 11 of those entries were recognized at the state level with either Award of Excellence, Award of Outstanding Achievement, Award of Merit, and Honorable Mention. Tonight, we're proud to honor 11 artists from our district who placed at the Ohio PTA level. Their art was on exhibit during the Ohio PTA Convention. The first place winners who received Award of Excellence at our state level will advance to the national level. We wish them all the best at the national judging. Westerville celebrates 2 entries making it to the national level this year. Without further delay, let's recognize all these talented artists. I'd like to call up first Audrey Milan. She won her award in literature, intermediate division. She's from Emerson, and she has honorable mention. Jenna Benedict, literature, from our primary division. She attends Elcott, and she won honorable mention. Landon Bailey. He is photography, intermediate. He is from Wilder and awarded honorable mention. Elizabeth O'Connor, and I don't believe she's here with us tonight. She was in visual arts, intermediate division, Elcott, and she won honorable mention. Max Pike, visual arts. He's in the middle division, attends Walnut Springs, and won honorable mention. Daniel Dewey, literature, primary division. He attends Mark Twain, and he won Award of Merit. Grayson Hunley, dance choreography, primary division. She attends Mark Twain, and she won Award of Merit. Janie Lee Nickel, who could not be here with us tonight. She won in dance choreography, middle division. She goes to Genoa, and she won Award of Merit. Patty Dowd also could not be with us tonight. She is one for literature. She's middle division. She goes to Walnut Springs, and she won Award of Merit. And now for our two first place winners. Antonio Bellani. Photography, special artist from McVeigh, Award of Excellence. Alexander Hedrick, film production, primary, also from McVeigh, Award of Excellence. Also here from McVeigh is Katie Worthland. She is an art teacher at McVeigh, and those were the two of her students who won the first place. To conclude this presentation, I would like to say congratulations to all our artists again. To the board, thank you for your continued support. I want to encourage all the children to participate in next year's program, where the theme again is, "The world would be a better place if." Keep being creative and expressing yourself through your art. Thank you.
Okay, one more time. Can I have these talented students stand up and their supportive parents so we can give them one more round of applause, please? Fantastic. Okay, finally this evening, I'm pleased to welcome Westerville's very own State Representative Ann Gonzalez. Representative Gonzalez is here this evening to present Huber Ridge Elementary with a very special award.
Thank you, and this is such an honor to be here tonight. This truly is one of my favorite parts about my job, is recognizing just all the great things that happen in the district. Tracy, I couldn't agree with you anymore when you made that comment earlier. You know, Westerville is just so dear to me. Not only do I have 3 kids that went to school here, but, you know, 2 at South. We have 2 at Bowling Green right now and 1 still at South. It really is a wonderful school district filled with great teachers and staff and a wonderful school board members and a wonderful superintendent. I'm here tonight to recognize Huber Ridge Elementary School, and I believe Miss Gibbs is here. Come on up. I love Huber Ridge. You know, you guys always invite me to read to the 3rd grade class, and I just enjoyed that opportunity in the 4th grade class. It's just always a fun time. Of course, other schools do the same thing, but Huber Ridge most recently, so it was I was with Beth O'Reilly. It was great. Anyway, this is a wonderful honor. Congratulations to you and your faculty and your staff and your administrators. One of only 37 schools actually received this recognition from the Board of Education, and it is for the academic year 2012-2013, and they're being honored because they've demonstrated exceptional growth in student learning and significant gains in the student reading and math scores. And that says a lot for, you know, the teachers and even the students themselves and the families and the parents. So the school has consistently provided a host of opportunities for students by offering them outstanding curricula, different types of instruction, and it's a wonderful facility down there. And it's just steadily grown and statured as an existing hub of intellectual discovery. So I won't take up much more time because I know you guys have 17 items on your agenda, and that's long. So you're like, just keep talking? No, but congratulations to you. Like I said, the staff and the teachers and the students themselves. So there you go.
Thank you. On behalf of Mr. Blados, our principal, and the teacher staff and students and parents, it is an honor to receive this, and this goes to the hard work that's done each and every day for our students, and we just hope to continue in this excellence and hope that you will see us here again. Thank you.
Oh, where's everyone going?
Come back, there's more.
Fire drill, yeah.
I'm not feeling the love.
Oh my gosh, look at it now.
We'll wait just a second until the room clears out.
All right, Peg Duffy, you can come forward now. Oh,
What?
All right, I think we can move on now that most everyone has left, unfortunately. Thank goodness this is on television, right? We'll move on the agenda to reports, and we have the superintendent's report up next.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you for allowing me the opportunity tonight to provide an update on where our magnet program from our last board meeting, as promised. At that time, I shared that we would bring forward an update from the committee members we're working with. Before I do that, just because that's who I am, I feel like you on a Sunday, Rick. You know, I was just watching the recognitions we had and thinking back, as I'm prone to do, about strategic planning. I know you're going to grow tired of hearing this, but one of the strong community elements in there was about more than core, the kind of opportunities we offer kids that are educational in their flavor, that involve partnerships with other agencies. And what you saw here tonight for those first two pieces, the American Legion piece and the way they're recognizing our students, and our parent volunteers, PTA, that work through that reflections piece. There's a fine arts piece, other places for kids to shine and gain recognition beyond those things that get measured on report cards. And so I think just a kind reminder about those things, as well as the Huber Ridge work with students and their student achievement. So nice bit of the kind of work we're doing. So it's proud to see that this evening. So what I want to do is kind of give you an update where we are with the magnet program from our last discussion. Since the last board meeting, I've had a committee come together, consists of some of our school principals, both the magnet principals, some other principals, teachers, parents, and district level administrators. And we've had 2 meetings that focused on a couple elements. One of the things we looked at was a staffing plan and looking how we can bring the program back online underneath the parameters we discussed in the March board meeting regarding using current staff to fill those grade levels and move forward, with the understanding that we wanted to be at 1 section per grade level for each strand. So they looked at the staffing plan with us. We talked about how we would fill the empty seats, and one of the 2 program options we looked at that I'll talk a little bit about tonight is whether or not we should continue with a district level lottery, which we've done in the past, which is basically put everybody in the lottery system and pull names regardless of school, versus looking at a building seat allocation. I'll share that model with you in the discussion we had there. The other 2 pieces we've been working on is the lottery guidelines, putting those into administrative guidelines to support the policy, timelines for the lottery, and most importantly is a communication plan, because it's April 14th and this is going to move fast, and so you'll see some of that. So that's the group that's been doing the work. We've had 2 meetings. Those are the areas we've discussed. To give you an idea where we're at, in terms of the staffing plan and bringing us back online with 1 section per grade level, at the end of the day, and that would give us the 3 strands with a total of about 375 students if you assume 25 kids per class. So we reviewed that, and coming out of that meeting, where we're intending to proceed is that for next year we would add back grades 2 and 3. If you recall back to the March meeting, I'd suggested that we'd add 1 grade level per year. In our discussions, what we found was it was beneficial to add 2 grade levels next year, because it doesn't require us to break up the staff that are there, that have made a commitment to that building, have had the background experience, so that if their certification and their commitment to being there remains and it can be worked out from a staffing perspective, we thought that that was least disruptive and still fits the bill of what we were trying to do. So that would mean adding back grades 2 and 3 for next year. We had a lot of debate about what grade level to start with, and the problems become where you have a hole. If you start with 1st grade, which was attractive to some people because 2nd and 3rd graders are in buildings, have experiences, their parents made commitments to school, they may be less likely to pull their kid out of their current elementary school to go a magnet than a 1st grade parent. But it doesn't match up right. If you do a chart, you'll see you end up with a gap in there someplace where there's an absent year and no kids. So we, after lots and lots of debate and lots of discussion, we ended up going with 2nd and 3rd grade and adding 1st grade in the fall of 2015. So one of our concern spots is that what the application numbers will be moving forward in the lottery for 2nd and 3rd grade next year. And so communication, promotion. Although I'll tell you, I learned today, we've already had calls into our elementary office. We've had calls to the enrollment center already. People were inquiring about how to lottery into the magnet schools in the future. So that game plan puts us with 2nd and 3rd grade for next year, 1 section of each for each of the 3 strands, and in the following year, 1st grade, and that all uses current staffing. We had lots of discussion with the 2 building principals as well as Mr. Jakowski from our HR department to make sure that our past practices and how we've reassigned staff under these kinds of conditions worked okay, and that the certification of the teachers there worked okay. There are a couple of tricky spots, but in the end of the day, we think we're going to be okay. And I think it'll be some personal preferences for some people, but it should work out. Of course, we'll still have those kids who are in grades 3, 4, and 5. 5th grade will exit on out in May. 3rd and 4th will move up to 4th and 5th. They'll remain in the program. The other piece we talked about was the Robert Frost math and science. We had a lot of discussion with this. Met with the principal there, discussed it. The intent at this point is that those students will remain there, and then it'll be phased out, so that the math and science at Robert Frost, those 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders there will be able to stay, finish out that program, but as those 3rd graders exit in 5th grade in 2 years, Robert Frost will no longer have a lottery-based math and science strand there as in the past. And that will leave us, as we had planned, one section per grade level of each of the 3 strands, 15 classrooms times 25 kids, 375 kids. So that's the staffing component. And I think we've got that pretty well worked out, some more conversations to have as well. One of the other pieces we talked about was how to allocate the seats. In the past, we've done a district lottery, all the names in the hat, and regardless of school, you got a name, pulled out a hat, and you went. And one of the ideas we played with was this idea of building seat allocation. So the building seat allocation model, we felt, allows for balanced enrollment across the schools based on school enrollment. So we're pulling numbers of kids from every elementary school. We think that should support a more diverse student body, help balance the elementary building enrollment. The way we built the model that they'll be looking at as part of the guidelines is we effectively looked at the October count for all of the buildings and looked at that and lined the buildings up according to October count, and then allocating seats depending on the size of the building. And then looking at how that would distribute out against each building and how that would pull our 75 kids that we would need to pull out. And it works out, actually, when we start playing with the numbers, it really is pretty interesting. I was playing with it today. I think that regardless of size of school and how many seats, at the end of the day, each building has about the same percentage of its student body having access to the elementary magnet program. So it works out pretty well. I think the range, depending on the school size, with Point View at the bottom, I think it's 3 kids per strand, and at the top of the heap is it's either Faust or Alcott. I think it's Faust with 6 or 7 per grade level. So it all works out pretty nicely, and that's the direction the committee is going to go with in the guidelines. I will tell you, on our end, we were talking about it today, in terms of the lottery system, it gets a little bit more complicated, but we'll work out the details there. So the committee, after deliberating back and forth, felt that that was a better way to go. There's been a strong emphasis in that committee for an open process that they really feel says to the community, these are programs available to anyone. And they really felt like this was one way of kind of putting your money where your mouth is and saying every building has seats available regardless of where they're at. Whereas that can be stated in a district level lottery, it's clear from a policy perspective if you allocate seats per building like we've suggested. So we're going to work from that model and go forward. The other idea we played with was this idea of whether or not we should continue the practice of a student who goes to magnet school today is withdrawn from their home school and enrolled at the magnet school, and that becomes their school of residence. The other model would be to cross-enroll, meaning that the student would stay enrolled in their home school, cross-enrolled to the magnet. The functional difference for that is at the state level, any data associated with that student is attached back to their home school. Test data, attendance data, et cetera. And we played with that under the notion that sometimes buildings feel like when they lose kids to the magnets, they lose that kid's data. And it's similar to what we do, for example, in students who are in special education programs that are self-contained and are assigned to a particular building, not at their home school, because we don't provide that service at every building. It's also similar to what we do with gifted kids in self-contained classes who leave their building and go to self-contained. They are cross-enrolled back to their home school. We had a lot of discussion on this, and this was an interesting one for me because I fully expected the parents to be more resistant to this, because what you lose is the water cooler conversation about my school's report card, because the building no longer has that. And I expected the principals to be in favor because the idea would be they retain those kids. It flipped in the conversation, which was interesting. End of the day, what we thought was best was to go ahead and withdraw from the homeschool, enroll in the magnets. And part of that premise, after we thought about the kids, thought about the school, thought about the programming, was the notion that, you know something, now the data for those students stays attached to the adults who are responsible for their education. Tie that back to the OTES evaluation piece and all those other pieces, it works well. So our recommendation is to leave them, withdraw them, and enroll them in the magnets. Long story, but it was an interesting one. At least I thought so. The lottery guidelines, we have taken really there was a series of documents that detailed out the lottery guidelines. We have a meeting this week. Mark Kirschheiser will be leading this. with a group of some parents, teachers, and administrators, taking those guidelines and adjusting them to fit the models we just talked about, and working out the brochures, the descriptions, the application, the timelines, the process for that whole piece for public display. There'll be a clear focus on an open process with lots of communication regarding access. So that group meets. I told them I'd lock them in a room on Wednesday, I think they're meeting, and won't let them out until they have it done. They agreed to that, but I have to buy them lunch apparently. So we'll be working on that. And it won't, I don't think it'll be much different other than that notion of per school allocation for the first draw versus what we've done in the past. And if you have questions on that lottery, I can answer them tonight as well. The last piece is a communication plan, for us the most important piece. That group is meeting this week as well. Greg Vibrance and his team is meeting with some administrators, parents, teachers again, small offshoot from our group, working on a communication plan. We did target, as a group, May 5th, it's pretty aggressive, as the opening to the lottery with a May 19th close date. So those guidelines and the communication piece have to go very, very fast to meet that May 5th deadline. We're going to use print, we're going to use electronic communication. We talked about an open house not just at the magnets, but perhaps a series of open houses at different parts throughout the district. One of the things I'm concerned about here is I don't want to put a lot of pressure on our elementary principals to run these shows. They got enough going on. A couple of them were very pleased when I said, we'll help take that part over. If there's going to be an open house with communication about how this works, we'll send the district staff there to do that and let the building principals run their buildings. So that's what we're working on, is a May 5th opening date. Lots of communication going out. The nice thing is we do have a lot of those documents in place. It's just a matter of tweaking the language, tweaking some dates, and then pushing out the communication. My hat's off, and I should start with thanks to that committee. They were brilliant. They were, it was good. There were people in there who were not afraid to take the opposing viewpoint, to play the devil's advocate and to push our thinking. We reminded ourselves that we tended to be of like thinking about the desire to have the magnets come back and the pace of that, and it was healthy to have people in the room reminding us of other perspectives about pace and perception along the way. So I thank them for their hard work. I'll give you a great example. The last meeting, we were discussing how we'd figure out the seat allocation by building, and I said I'd be happy to take the math back and work on it, but if any of them were math people, they feel free to do that. We left that meeting at 6 o'clock that night. When I opened up my email at 7 o'clock the next morning, someone had it done in a beautiful spreadsheet for me, and that's the one we're moving forward with. It was really well done. So I appreciate all their leadership and all their help. So that's a drink from the hydrant. If you got questions, I'll be glad to answer them as best I can.
Questions for John? Or comments?
I think it was, I'm impressed, but to start off with, you've got it together, and my only question is, and maybe you answered this, but I didn't pick up on it, in terms of the communication part of it, how are we marketing this to the parents so that they're all aware and have equal access to the process, I guess?
That'll be a big part of the communication planning this week. And that is the priority. There was strong feeling amongst folks. We talked a lot about how we're going to engage and share this information with people. My concern is that the pace at which we're going to try to get to May 5th, we can't miss any stone, leave it unturned. So we're going to have to take a shotgun approach, multiple venues, multiple opportunities. That's part of the idea behind let's do open houses at schools rather than at the magnet at different points, engaging PTAs. So I feel confident in our communications shop. They know what we're trying to get to. They'll make sure we push that out.
Well, for people that are not involved in PTAs or whatever, is there any kind of a letter going home or a little half sheet or something?
Yeah, I would believe. I think a mailing is in order. I'm not. There's a cost to it, but I would rather do a mailing to homes than stick it in backpacks of first graders.
Okay.
I don't know your experience with first graders. Mine was. One was really pretty
good.
good.
First
The other
thing you
one
got
was
home.
backpack. I'm supposed to bring it home?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say it about my children. They're good kids. So, yeah, we need to make sure we're going as directly to parents as we can. We also have our auto dialer. We have email systems, anything we can. everything we can. In fact, Mr. Vibrance was very kind, and thank you to this week. They came in earlier tonight and interviewed me about where we're going, and I'm sure that will hit the papers this week as well. So we'll continue to push those pieces.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Go ahead.
Current policy states that we will provide an equal opportunity for boys and girls through a lottery process without preference. Are we going to worry about equal number of boys and girls?
You know, it's an interesting one because as we looked at that language, and we will take that back as part of the guidelines piece, it speaks to gender, but it doesn't speak to some of the other diversity issues as well.
Correct.
And so I'll be interested in seeing how those guidelines folks deal with that one. But I would hope that I would think that group would be sensitive not just to gender, but to some of the other issues we want to take care as well. It'll be a little bit trickier, but we're going to give it a shot. I would suspect that first year out of the chute, we might trip on ourselves a little bit, but we'll straighten it out.
Sure. What's going to happen if the seats aren't filled at one school?
So let's take a hypothetical. If we were to allocate to an elementary building 8 seats, making up a number, and for some reason they only had 6 applicants from that school, there's 2 empty seats. So one of the concepts we've talked about would be the idea of a second draw, is what I'm calling it, where any remaining seats, I'll wait a minute for Cindy to get, it's nice to see her here. So the concept would be that any remaining seats that were not, of a building didn't have as many applicants as they had allocated seats, we take the leftovers. Concept would be a second draw at a district level. So if we had 5 leftover seats, we put them in a pool again, second draw. Any kid who has not been selected so far, at that point we don't go by building allocation, we just open enroll to anyone. We also talked about, because we have done this now, across the district and at the magnet schools, we have at times overflowed students. And we had the discussion about what happens if a student, as there are now, overflowed. And the general discussion in the room, again, to go back to the guidelines committee, would be if a student was overflowed there, they're there under the overflow policy. And the overflow policy speaks to, at the end of the year, if you get an invitation, you choose to stay, you can stay. So we talked about that as well. And all that, I think, is going to be tied into the guidelines. A lot of that got tied to, I think, concern that reinstating 2nd and 3rd grade next year under the current conditions where there's still a little anxiety and a little unknown about commitment and sustainability to the magnets, and I'm pulling my kid out of an elementary school, they've established themselves, that there was some concern in the room that we might get fewer applicants than we had seats. And what would we do with the extra seats? And so we're trying to put game plans in place to do that. I got a feeling that may not be the case, but I'm an optimist at heart.
A few minutes ago in this meeting, we were giving all of these awards, and I don't know if you picked up the theme for next year. Did you see that? Hear that theme for next year? The world will be a better place if, and then they have to. And I thought, wow, that's so neat. And from where we were not too long ago,
it's about a year to date. Honestly, I was thinking about tonight.
Yeah, it's about a year to date.
I was talking about the last meeting we had where we were where we were going down this road and then came back and from where we were just a month and a half ago or whatever to where we are now, it just feels very good to me that you and this team have come together and you've ironed things out, and now it's 2 per strand, and I just am really pleased for the entire district, and I keep saying that because I think that this is a district win. The lottery piece that you're trying to work out, you know, what would be the best equitable way? Should it be casting a net, you know, across the whole district or building specific? That's not a barrier for me. So we might stub our toe a couple times this next time, like, well, maybe we should tweak it this way. But I can't fault when people go back and say, okay, we got to redraw this, and then we work with a team of parents, teachers, administrators, and then we redraw it, and it comes out, wow, maybe we can do 2 per strand. And I'm just thankful for the flexibility that was shown.
It's been a supportive team, thoughtful team, and they've done great work. And I appreciate it because the timelines are quick.
It is, yes.
Whenever we go fast, that's when I worry about tripping up, missing a turn, running by a blank spot.
And that may happen, but at the end of the day, when we look at the larger picture, it's exactly as you're saying. The larger picture is we're moving ahead in a very strong, very committed fashion to making sure that these programs go forward and that they're strongly staffed and that the student selection plan is good for the entire district. So if there are mess-ups, if we miss a turn, we'll pick it up on the next time around. And the good thing about that is this is not a district where any student loses because of their choice. So we have a lot to be celebrating with what's happened here in such an incredibly short time. A lot of people say educators aren't capable of moving that fast, but we know that's not true. So congratulations to your team, and kudos to them for the hard work that they do. And Mr. Vibrans, I wish him all success in these coming weeks as you get that information out there. So anyone who knows anyone who lives in the district, which is everybody here, you need to tell them to be on the lookout, to watch for what's happening. This is something that will come from our team as well, but it needs to be significantly led by grassroots and letting parents know what's going on.
We used to call it spread the word to the herd.
Yep.
The last thing I'd tell you that's probably the next phase of really stabilizing this is professional development. In that we're offering specific curricular focus, 3 different strands at these schools. And as we rebuild, we need to work with those teachers, and we're starting to discuss how that looks over next year to make sure that the professional development focus that needs to be part of the elementary program overall, inclusive of the magnet schools, not exclusive of anybody else, whether it's math, science, fine arts, that we have that infrastructure in place for the magnets and any other building that has interest in that particular focus, particularly if it leads to improved student achievement. The other piece of that is we think foundationally any of this has to be grounded in strong literacy skills for kids. End of the day, that's the thing that matters most for our elementary school students. So that's kind of the back burner next phase for this superintendent. Think about nitty-gritty of this, fine. The PD to make it sustainable and make those teachers successful and bring results from the kids is the next phase. So we appreciate the time, the effort, your support, and again, thank you to my team, particularly those that will be working so hard on Wednesday and Thursday on my behalf. We look forward, and we'll keep you apprised, so thank you.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda to the first portion of public comments, number 6 on your agenda. This is reserved for public comments that are related to items that are on the agenda tonight, and that means you can only talk about things that are on for action tonight. If you sign up for this portion of public comment, you're allocated 5 minutes to speak, and you will know very clearly when that's over. And if you sign up to speak, names of individuals aren't to be used as part of a complaint or a concern, and individuals are not to violate the fairness doctrine. With all of that said, there isn't anyone signed up to speak this evening, so we'll be moving on. But you can remember that for next time when you do come to sign up to speak. Moving on to item 7 on the agenda, the financial portion of the agenda. Item 7.01 is a resolution to approve the financial reports and investments for February and March of this year. And the financial report does list all funds ending February 2014 and March 2014. Could I have a motion on the financial resolution, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, Finance Liaison, is there anything you would like to say first of all?
I always like Bart to bring out our interest that we're earning.
Good point.
Because obviously we all know it's not much these days, but Bart does the best job and gets the best banks and seems to do well with what we get. Bart, what do we have going on here?
Well, Madam President, just to give you an idea, we do have roughly $7.5 million invested. We're only getting anywhere from 0.4 to 0.5% interest on that money, so you aren't getting a lot, that's for sure. I'll give you the end of the March, so I won't take the February time. The March year-to-date receipts is $144,528,000. Year-to-date expenditures, and this is general fund only, is $100,118,000. The ending cash balance is $61.3 million right now in the general fund. In all funds, year-to-date receipts are $185,642,000. Year-to-date expenditures are $136,403,000. The unencumbered fund balance is $74,576,000. And I will take this time, in May, we're doing the 5-year forecast. So we typically will bring this to you the first meeting in May for review. We'll present it, and then in the second meeting in May, we actually ask for your approval. Okay? So right now, just to give you an up-to-date, we are running about a 1.5% ahead, and somebody will say, well, that's not a lot. As treasurers, we try to get within 2%. And I had a seasoned treasurer tell me one time, he goes, if you expect me to be 99% correct, okay, that means I can be 1% off. That's 1% in revenue and 1% in expenditures. 1% in revenue is $1.5 million. And 1.5% in expenditures is $1.5 million. So technically, you could be off $3 million either way. Okay, but I will tell you, we're within 1.5 right now. So we're within the guidelines that I try to be in. It's not an exact science. It's not a crystal ball. We put the best effort in and try to make sure things are reasonable. So we are running about $1.5 million ahead of revenue right now and $1.5 million under expenditures. So we are doing good, but we're going to bring that to you in May. The forecast in June is the appropriations for you new on the board. We typically do 2 readings of those. We'll bring the first appropriations meeting in June, and the second meeting will basically, if there's no questions, we'll approve it. Okay, we typically do the final appropriations for this fiscal year and the appropriations for next fiscal year. So if you have any questions about that process, let me know. I'll certainly walk you through them individually or however you want to do it. Okay? But other than that, we're running pretty good.
Sounds good, Mr. Griffith.
Comments or questions? I hear none, primarily because you stay within 99%.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Could I have you call the roll, please, Mr. Griffith?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Crow?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the financial resolution for this evening has been approved. Moving on in the agenda to item 8, this is the personnel consent calendar for this evening. And the personnel consent calendar deals with personnel items, resignations, retirements, hires, and so forth for both certificated and classified staff. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second. Dr. Kellogg, shall we call Kurt up?
I believe we have Mr. Chakowski here this evening to present this part of the agenda.
Thank you, President Nestor Baker, Dr. Kellogg, members of the board. This evening, I've had an opportunity to review some consent agenda items with members of the board, and I think I've answered those questions. I do want to point out a couple highlights in regards to this month's agenda. Section 8.3 is our retirement classified. We'll have 2 of our longtime employees who are retiring. They'll be retiring before the end of the school year, so make sure that we recognize them with the group that we bring back at the end of the school year to recognize all retirements. Then we also have 11 teachers. It's that time of year. We'll have several more on the next agenda as well, but nothing like what we've seen in the past. We're right around 20 or so right now for the school year, 21, and I don't anticipate seeing a bunch, several more. I just don't anticipate that. We had a coach that sustained an injury on the job, but he wasn't able to fulfill his supplemental contract, so that's why you see contractual status change for a coach, and then you also see us hiring a coach after the fact as well, because that person had to pick up where the one that was injured left off. We are also getting ready for our Section 8.10, our annual home visits, our kindergarten students, and this is led not only by our regular classroom teachers, but by support personnel. So we have some of our special education staff and ESL staff that will be accompanying our regular ed teachers when we do some of those home visits based on the needs or the determined needs of the children coming in. So that's why we have, may appear that there's a long list of people, but it's not all of them going to the home, never more than 2, and it just depends on the need of the child. It's also that time of the year for non-renewals, all of our non-renewal supplemental contracts, so you'll see several hundred names on the list as far as non-renewals. And then we'll be rehiring those positions based on need for the upcoming school year. It's also the time when we reemploy our classified and our licensed teaching staff and our classified employees per statute. So we are recommending the reemployment of several hundred employees on the district level that work for the district. Those employees have had a thorough evaluation process this school year, and all have been deemed appropriate for the contract that they're being recommended for. So it's my recommendation that the board approve the consent agenda as is presented to you this evening.
Comments or questions? It's a very busy time for personnel in the district. Every year it's busy at this time. I would point out with the non-renewals, it is an annual thing. This is nothing to be worried about. Typically, people who are not aware of the process begin to get a little worried, and they say, oh my gosh, you've just fired every supplemental person in the district. How can you do this? It's because the supplemental contracts are for 1 year, and we will then renew contracts and rehire individuals for those supplemental contract positions. It is a normal part of the business year for the district. The retirements that are there, you know, I expect when I retire I won't feel sad about it, but every time I read these lists I'm sad because there are people on these lists that have just done incredible things for this district, and every single one of those people that's retiring has dealt with hundreds, at least hundreds of students, and typically more, and they have left an indelible stamp on the district. So it's this time of year it's always like, oh no, surely she's not ready to retire, but we keep going, and we have wonderful people who come in just as we say goodbye.
Well stated. Good.
Thank you, Kurt. Moving on the agenda again to item 9.
Excuse me.
We didn't call the roll. Mr. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Dr. French.
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson.
Yes.
Mrs. Crow.
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, the consent agenda has been approved. Now moving on to item 9, which is policy consent, and there is nothing under item 9 for this evening, so we move on to recommended action, which is old business, and that's item 10 on your agenda, and we have nothing there either. Moving on to 11, recommended action for new business, we have nothing under item 11, which takes us to item 12 on the agenda. This is recommended action standing business, and this item 12.01, donations. Always kind of like recognitions. This is always a fun part of the agenda, an enjoyable piece, so we see how many people support us. Could I have a motion on donations, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that donates, in some cases cash, PTAs, the individual schools. It's amazing. Some of the things that are done in the classrooms cannot be done without this donation. And so it's always a big thank you every month. And sometimes we forget to say that, but we really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol. Would you call the agenda, please, or the roll, please?
Mrs. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes.
Mrs. Crow.
Yes.
Dr. French.
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, 12.01, the donations have been approved this evening. We'll move on to 12.02, and this is a resolution to approve admission and waiver of tuition for foreign exchange students. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. This deals with 3 foreign exchange students. Is there any comment, Dr. Kellogg, that you would like to make about this?
No, just the value of continuing the practice of supporting foreign exchange students is just something that I think is important to our school district, and the learning of our kids. And having hosted exchange students, I can tell you that had a great value. So I appreciate the board's willingness to support these programs, and for the host families to do so, and for our students for embracing these young people when they come into our community and become part of our school systems. It's really a fabulous experience. I look forward to getting to know them.
Indeed. Comments or questions?
I'm going to make my continued comment regarding this. Every year I think, I don't know how many we have so far for next year, but in past years we've had as many as 12 or 14, 15 of them. I think there's a value in having these people. We have one from Germany, Palestine, and Pakistan this time, and there is definitely a value for the students. My concern is we provide this with free tuition, of course, and I always bring up, are we equally sending our students over for free tuition? Are they experiencing, in other countries? And often we send one or two. But we may take on 12, 15 of them. And so that's always my concern, that, our students need to get opportunities for that too. And maybe we just don't have students interested in it. But there is a value in them coming to us. I understand that. But maybe, and again, I bring it up to the board, we ought to look at, setting some sort of a limit or talking about that in the future. That's just an issue that I always am concerned about, because I've asked the question in the past, how many do we send and how many do we take in? So it's something to think about, but that's always...
Let me dovetail on that. I really appreciate that. I had... do we know? I just don't know. I'm seeing them listed, the agencies here. Education, Travel, and Culture is one, and then Program for Academic Exchange, PAX, which is pretty cool that it's PAX. Do we work with them, like in an official capacity? We work with them, and they bring students in to like pick up on Carol's. It'd be great to send some students a reciprocity thing. I'm thinking of 2 students that would be.
Just happen to be named Villardo.
Yes, sorry. No, I just think that I think it's a huge win for us to have these students. Is there can we reciprocity that, or how do we do that?
My experience with this particular the way exchange student systems have worked in the past is there are programs, foreign exchange programs like the ones you see listed there, that have been, in my past understanding, I have to go back to our practice and our policy, been approved by National Association for Secondary School Principals. So the exchange programs themselves have been approved because they vet kids correctly before they bring them over. Then on the other end, there's usually agency representatives. The one that comes to mind for me, full disclosure because I'm a Rotarian, is through Rotary. And there's someone who acts as a conduit on this end to place students. The flip goes the other way, but you are correct. You tend to see more students coming to us from overseas than our students' willingness to go overseas. So I'll share a secret passion of mine in this area, that as a high school principal, one of the 10 things I left undone was the notion, similar to colleges, where they actually staff foreign exchange programs and promote foreign exchange programs as learning activities, as an active piece. For example, I can tell you that my daughter's soon-to-be alma mater has a goal of every student spending some time of their college experience overseas in studies, whether it's a spring break or winter break. So those kinds of parts of our programming and how do we promote that and communicate the value and work with those agencies, I think is one way to increase the visibility and increase the number of kids on the other side. The notion of capping the number of kids coming over as a policy question is certainly something that the board could engage us with in as well if they wanted to do that. I would keep in mind that all the students coming over are being placed in the homes of community members who are taxpayers themselves, so as such it's kind of an extension of their home, but I do understand. I do like the idea of, as a metric for ourselves as a district, how many of our students do consider and participate in some form of overseas studies, because the cultural benefit to that in a global economy
Huge.
and 21st century students would be a wonderful piece to go after. So,
And that's probably where I'm picking up as well. Back to full disclosure, I'm a Rotarian, Cindy's a Rotarian. You know, we've done this, and I thought, wow, just an interesting idea to see if we can somehow, I don't know, nudge it forward, and maybe it's at the building level, you know, the principal level, something. I just love the experience that they're going to get, and that can we nudge some of ours? Just.
And on the plus side, we do get state funds for them. We can count their heads, right? Or not? I'm not sure.
you know, to be honest, I'm not sure how the
I'm not-
state funding for that works as well. I would suspect that
Although they should count in the
They would be in
EMIS.
October count.
Yeah,
Should be in October.
I would
Yeah, they'd
think.
be in the
yeah.
October
Should be in
count.
October count.
what's a good one to double check.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. That's all I...
Looks like this is something we need to discuss further at a later date. But for this evening, the resolution is to approve the admission waiver of tuition for these identified students, and ask Mr. Griffith to please call the roll.
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Crow,
Yes.
Dr. French,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, the resolution has been approved. And we will move on to 12.03, which is a resolution to declare impracticality to transport students. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. The second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, this is a standard piece of business for us in the district. As you may know, the district does have a responsibility as assigned by the state to transport students who attend private schools, and sometimes that is not practical for a number of reasons that are identified. And we have on the agenda then this evening this particular resolution to determine impracticality of transportation for a couple of students. And I see that Randy Snyder is there. Would you like to talk about this, Randy? Thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
Never look like you're going to come to the microphone.
You are correct. Tonight before you is a resolution declaring impracticality for the identified students for transportation. Just as a refresher and as a review, Ohio law does allow for public schools to determine impracticality of transportation after considerations of a number of factors, such as the cost of providing transportation and the number of students to be transported. Most recently, January 27th of 2014, the board had passed a resolution declaring 8 students impractical for transportation. And once again, before you tonight is a list of 2 additional students that have been deemed impractical to transport by the Office of Purchasing and Logistics. These students were evaluated as attending to the private school they attend per the requirements of Section 3327.02 of the Ohio Revised Code, and therefore declared impractical. Total of 2 students once again this evening, and approving this resolution would allow the district to offer payment in lieu of transportation in the manner also which is described by the Ohio Revised Code. The payment in lieu amount therefore is determined by the state of Ohio.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Would you call the roll, please?
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Crow,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, the resolution has been approved, and we move on yet again in our agenda to the public comment section number 2. Public comments for this particular part of the agenda are for comments that are for the good of the order. In other words, they don't have to be related to something on the agenda this evening. They are for the good of the district as a whole. However, you still are limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and we do once again request that if you have a complaint or a concern that you refrain from using individuals' names and that you do adhere to the fairness doctrine. With that, we do have 3 individuals signed up this evening, and the first speaker is Peg Duffy.
I look at this more as a public service announcement rather than comments. Most of us are familiar with the article that appeared several weeks ago in This Week News regarding International Baccalaureate. The student who was quoted throughout that, Jack, told us about going to the University of Worcester. This is in the United Kingdom. We heard about his academic achievements, but what most of us don't know is he played on a losing football team. Now, this is in the UK, and we're talking American football, not football, soccer, that British lingo that we always get wrapped up in. That's Jack. The entire losing season. You may all see it. But to learn more about this, a film, I can't tell you how long it is, playing it forward, a week from tomorrow, will be shown in Riley Auditorium, Battelle Fine Arts Center at Otterbein. This follows the losing team through the typical season, including going to the pub after losing games. It was filmed in the UK. I can't tell you how long it is. Written, directed by Dr. Keith Pepperell, retired from Columbus State and an adjunct at Otterbein. But that's the extent of what I can tell you. But please join us a week from Tuesday. For those of you in the community who know Keith, this has to be delightful. Tracy, where do you want me to put it?
I was just going to say, I'll take it. I wanted
You
to...
can't have this one. You have to see Keith to get another one. This is mine.
Okay, so the time again, 5 p.m.?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
5
Tuesday,
p.m. Tuesday the 22nd.
the 22nd. Got it. Everyone will be there.
And it's followed by a question and answer, also music.
Fantastic.
Professional musicians.
And what was the name of the hall again? I'm sorry.
Which
Riley.
building?
Playing it forward.
And the building that it's going to be shown in?
Right.
Riley Auditorium, Battelle Fine Arts Center. For those of you who've been around for centuries, the old gymnasium.
Still know where that is.
Thank you, Peg. The next speaker is Jean Trimble. You're only allowed to talk if you have a poster. No, that's not true. Oh, that's great, that's great.
But I brought my little timer here so I don't run over. Okay. Thank you, board members, Dr. Kellogg, Mr. Griffith. April is School Library Month, and I'm here tonight to speak about librarians. First, I'd like to give credit, oops, I didn't start my thing, to the creators of a couple infographics I'll be referencing tonight. Jennifer Laguard with the inspiration from What Should an Administrator Expect a School Librarian Media Specialist to Be by Carl Harvey, the AASL, and the New Jersey Association of School Librarians. Okay. So first, the times, they're changing. Today's school librarians are not your grandmother's keeper of books. It's time to take a fresh look at what all teachers and administrators should expect from their school librarians. Teachers and librarians are collaborators. School librarians work with classroom teachers to plan, teach, and evaluate student learning. They work with administrators to develop and implement the school's vision. They collaborate with other professionals to extend learning beyond the school. Librarians are leaders. School librarians serve on committees. They design and deliver staff development, are often early adopters of technology, and use their skills as information specialists to help create and implement research based on instruction. And speaking of research, the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, they conducted a survey, and contrary to popular belief, students do not instinctively know how to navigate the abundance of information available to them through traditional and digital resources. In fact, a recent survey of first-year college students found that 75% of those had no idea how to locate articles and resources that they needed for their research. 60% don't verify the accuracy or reliability of the information that they find, and 44% do not know how to integrate knowledge from different sources. Librarians are learners. School librarians are active members of personal learning networks. They are eager to learn new things, to share their learning with others, and to model lifelong learning for students. Librarians are teachers. Some things that we teach: inquiry research, evaluating resources, creating and sharing, digital citizenship like fair use, ethically remixing information, and attributing credit. So basically, you mentioned, Dr. Kellogg, earlier that the importance of strong literacy skills, especially at the elementary level. It is my hope that our district as they move forward and the board identifies areas to enhance in the future, that you consider the positive impact school librarians make on student achievement, on childhood literacy, and to the overall 21st century learning community in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Our third speaker for the evening is Jen Altman.
There we go. Dr. Kellogg, Mr. Griffin, board members, thank you for the chance to be up here to speak tonight. I just wanted to say a couple things around programming. And one is that after having a front row seat to the realignment process last year, I really can't believe how far things have come in a year. So thank you, everyone, for all the hard work. And that's people who are in this room and lots of people who aren't in this room. And not just on the magnet programming, which we heard about tonight, but there is real excitement out there about the middle and high school programming. I have a child who's going into middle school next year, and literally the kids are like, is there going to be a 3D printer in that fab lab? Like, they want to know, and they're excited. So I thank everybody for all of that work. And I do have one question regarding the magnet form that was proposed, which is there one per strand, one class per strand per grade, or two? I just wanted to make sure we get that one. Okay, that's what I thought. It seems like maybe there's a little confusion about that, but one, okay. And then in terms of getting the message out, just a couple of thoughts. I have a child in a magnet program. I have another child who is not. And I just want to encourage that we talk about programs being good fit for kids and for families. And that it's all about finding the right place for your child and for your family. And that may mean, as in probably this might be the case with some of my kids because I have 3, that a program that would work really well for one, like my child who started lining things up into rows and patterns when she was 2, might not be the same great fit for my third child, who's sort of like a ball of energy and chaos. So I just encourage, as we go out and talk to people, that we really talk about the programs and the different qualities they have. And that as we move forward, we're a little short on time this year, but as we move forward, we might think about how the open enrollment process and the magnet lottery, maybe we can fit those together somehow to really highlight more schools, so that, you know, when people are applying for open enrollment at the elementary level, they don't get the same kind of blurb about a school, at least in my experience, that people are going to get about a magnet program. So just thinking about maybe how we can highlight all of our schools, and as President Nestor Baker said, all the opportunities we have for kids are wonderful, so just trying to get the word out about all of them. But I'm excited about all this programming, and lots of people are too. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks and share those thoughts, and thanks for the clarification on that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. Those are the 3 speakers who were signed up for this evening's public comment. And moving on to board comments this evening. Board members, anything you would like to say this evening?
I'm going to be quiet for once.
Okay, I'm going to be very brief. I'd just like to congratulate all of our awardees tonight again, and also to just reiterate the fact that it was interesting to read, I don't know if all of you are aware, that our canine officers from around the state and our police dogs gather once in a great while, at least they've done it in the past, at Longfellow, one of our closed elementaries, to do some training exercises. And you know, the value of that is that they're experiencing in a vacant building hidden contraband and all types of things that these canines can pick up and learn, you know, their jobs. And so we're providing this at a closed school. So I think that was great. That's a great fit, and it was in our one of our newsletters that comes online, but I'm not sure everyone gets it. So in case you see lots of police officers at Longfellow and lots of different kinds of cars all from around the state and dogs, that's what's happening. And so at least that's available right now. So appreciate that opportunity, and I'm sure they do too.
That's great. If I see a lot of police officers at Longfellow, I'll be going to Hanby or somewhere else at that point. I'd really reiterate the joy in giving out these awards. That's just wonderful recognition, and these kids and the staff at those schools doing tremendous work. Thankful again for the flexibility on this whole magnet. Things just come so quick, so hard, and excited about the whole district. It's just really, I feel very good about where we're headed, and the world would be a better place if we could all have these kind of conversations, wrestle it out, and then recognize we're all on the same side, and then move forward.
I don't have anything inspirational to say, but I think that it is worth noting, and I hope he doesn't mind that I'm saying this, I think it's worth noting where the superintendent is going to be the day after Easter and what he's going to be doing, just in case anyone wants you for anything.
This time of the day I'll be on a couch.
Yeah, you will. That's right. John is going to be running the Boston Marathon. And I tell him I think that's pretty fantastic, and I don't know any other superintendent that is running the Boston Marathon, at least nobody from around here. And I want to wish you all joy as you run that. And best wishes for an excellent finish.
Yes, and represent Westerville well. At least don't come in last, right?
Yeah, good point. Good point. Or if you do, don't
Wow.
tell us about it. I don't hear about it.
There's 37,000 of us. There's got to be one I can outkick. Got to be one. I appreciate that. It's going to be, the capture for me was you all know the circumstances. And, you know, as you get singular and you're thinking about preparation, and this week as you watch the news, you get reminded about what this is really about. So I'm excited and try and put 2 feet in front of the other for a couple hours and not embarrass myself or my family.
Good luck, John. Item number 15, dates, times, and locations of next meetings. We will be meeting in a special meeting at 7 o'clock on Monday, April the 28th. This is to recognize the District GEM Award winners. It's going to be a great evening. This meeting will be at North High School. We won't be here. We will be at North High School. And the board will meet on Monday, May the 5th for a work session, and on Monday, May the 19th for a regular session such as we had this evening. We are going to be recognizing retirees on the 19th as well. Those meetings will be held at the Early Learning Center, and those will begin at 6 o'clock. With that, I'm going to ask the board to consider moving into executive session, and this would be executive session for the purposes of discussing negotiations and also to discuss personnel. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, Bart, would you call the roll on executive session?
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Crow? Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the board will now move into executive session. There will be no action taken afterward.